it is kind of hard to pin down the exact date of when all these books were translated. But is it fair to say that the bulk of it, we feel confident, would have been translated prior to the coming of Christ?
Yeah, yeah, the bulk of it, yeah, and certainly, so far as we know, the first 5 books would have been first, and that is typically dated to call it 250 BC, give or take. It's obviously hard to pin these things down. There's no copyright date on it. Shortly after that, it's a toss up in terms of, probably the Psalms at some point early. Most of the prophets would have been pretty early, including the major and the minor, or the 12 prophets. After that, it's kind of anyone's guess in terms of Samuel, Kings, Chronicles, Esther, Nehemiah, Ezra, Joshua. Like, it's a mixed bag because it's really difficult to tell. It's possible that some of the books, some of the more, uh, not, when I say minor, I don't mean they're not given by God in the same way, but obviously the Torah is more towards the center of what was galvanizing the Jewish community than, say, Ecclesiastes or Song of Songs. So the books that are more towards that periphery, like those 2 in particular, they might have been translated later. We don't know. We just don't have any early copies of them, and so that's why there's some debate as to when exactly the process ended. But the vast majority of what we would consider, 39 books of the Old Testament, would have been done before the time of Christ. But then soon thereafter, you have a whole bunch of efforts to retranslate certain books, and so again, it's a real moving target. But we could say the Old Greek layer, if you want to call it that, the original Greek translation would have largely predated the time of Jesus, and we know that because we have manuscripts from the Dead Sea Scrolls. Most we think are, most folks are familiar with like the Hebrew ones, but they're actually Greek ones from not only Qumran but some of the other settlements around the Dead Sea. We have early Jewish writers like Josephus and Philo using a Greek text form. So there's a lot of good evidence for there being a Septuagint prior to the time of Jesus. And I mention that because there's some on other YouTube channels, probably you have, there's a thread of more skeptical type folks who think that there was no such thing as the Septuagint. It was all invented later. And there's some reasons behind that theory, but the historical evidence is very much against it. So, and that's fine. It makes sense that there would be, and in the aftermath of Alexander the Great's conquest, and the whole world switches to Greek. It makes sense that we would have a Greek Bible long before the time of Jesus. So, long answer to your short question, but there you go.